Hello and welcome to Spectrum News at 9. My name is Xavier Robert, coming to you live from Uyo, the capital city of Akwa Ibom. Let's take a look at the headlines. President Tinubu assures of comprehensive criminal justice reform. Akwa Ibom State Sanitation to hold tomorrow, August 26th, with full restriction of movement. Plus, Trump released on bond after arrest and mugshot in Georgia. Details of these stories and more in a moment. First in the news tonight, President Bola Tinubu has promised that his administration will conclude a thorough review of the remuneration templates of judicial officers in the country. Receiving the leadership of the Nigerian Bar Association (NBA) led by Yakubu Michael San, the president said the battle against corruption necessitates a comprehensive review of the salaries and allowances of judicial officers, an issue that is well known to him, given his landmark success in reforming justice administration in Lagos State. President Tinubu equally acknowledged the importance of addressing the current vacancies within the Supreme Court, affirming that these vacancies represent obligations that must be fulfilled based on recommendations put forth by the National Judicial Council (NJC). The NBA president, in his remarks, commended the president for appointing very distinguished members of the bar into his cabinet, including Lateef Fagbemi, the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice.
Actually, what we've done is to profusely thank Mr. President for the choice of Prince Lateef Fagbemi as the Honorable Attorney General and Minister of Justice. This is one man that we can only describe as a round peg in a round hole. Someone that commands the respect of the bar, someone that has held himself high, has conducted himself in the best traditions of the bar, and we are happy that Mr. President made this choice of Prince Lateef Fagbemi to be the Attorney General of the Federation. We actually thanked Mr. President for the choice of Prince Lateef Fagbemi as the President of the Attorney General of the Federation. It wasn't a mistake. We are proud of that choice, and we've also told Mr. President that we would support the Honorable Attorney General, the bar, under my leadership, by the special grace of God. Well, actually,
the president thanked the NBA for extending an invitation to him to declare open the association's 63rd Annual General Conference this weekend in Abuja. He acknowledged his privilege of having numerous lawyers as close aides, including the Chief of Staff, Femi Gbajabiamila, the State Chief of Protocol, Victor Adeleke, and his Principal Private Secretary, Damilotun Aderemi. In another development, Vice President Kashim Shettima has said that Nigeria remains committed to collaborating with China and other African countries in ensuring that the partnership's objectives are achieved for the mutual benefit of both parties. Senator Shettima stated this when he represented President Bola Tinubu at the BRICS Summit in Johannesburg at the China-Africa Leaders Roundtable Dialogue meeting on the margins of the BRICS Summit, Johannesburg, South Africa. According to him, Nigeria welcomes the new initiatives introduced by the Chinese authorities, which include supporting and promoting the modernization of Africa's agriculture and agribusiness sectors, providing robust support for Africa to expedite regional integration, and backing Africa's industrialization and infrastructure expansion. Vice President Shettima spoke to a large audience, including President Xi Jinping of China and some African leaders, on the theme promoting African integration and jointly building a high-level Africa-China community with a shared future at the Santon Convention Center. Away from that, now the federal government has planned to reintroduce the National Tax Amnesty Scheme In a statement signed by the Director of Press and Public Relations of the Ministry of Finance, Stephen Kilebi, the tax amnesty scheme offers a time-limited opportunity for taxpayers to regularize their tax status relating to previous tax periods and pay the taxes due with certain benefits. Also in the statement, the Minister of Finance and the Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Wale Dun, assured Nigerians that better days are ahead with the implementation of the renewed hope agenda of President Bola Tinubu. In a separate development, the Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, Dr. Doris Uzoka Anite, has received the first ever Nigeria investment policy document from the Permanent Secretary of her ministry, Evelyn Ngige. Anite said that the policy, which was approved for implementation on May 10, 2023, is aimed at giving investors more comfort and attracting more investment into the country to further boost the economy. The minister also said that the investment policy primarily focuses on investment promotion and facilitation, as well as sustainable economic development. According to the ministry, the policy formulation is assisted by the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development as a technical partner. Meanwhile, the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation, Dr. Betta Aidu, has said that the ministry would soon start the verification of the social register for transparent distribution of fuel subsidy palliatives. Aidu disclosed this during a live broadcast today. She noted that the ministry would soon commence the distribution of the palliative, saying poverty alleviation is paramount to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration. The humanitarian minister added that the government would provide jobs to alleviate poverty in the country. Recall that the minister, upon assumption of office, pledged commitment to lifting 133 million Nigerians out of poverty. Now in education, the Executive Secretary, National Board for Technical Education (NBTE), Professor Idris Bugaje, says the board's slogan, "Skills, not degrees," is to encourage Nigerian youths to focus more on acquiring skills than certificates. Bugaje made the clarification in an interview with newsmen in Abuja today. He said that the clarification became necessary following public misconception that the NBTE was discrediting university certificates in favor of technical and vocational education and training. The Secretary urged Nigerian youths to focus on skills training to acquire skills qualifications irrespective of the type of degree or higher diploma they have. Still in education, the authorities at the Nnamdi Azikiwe University, Awka, have officially removed lecturers indicted of sexual harassment from their various official positions at the institution. This was disclosed in a press statement issued today by Dr. Emmanuel Ojukwu, Special Advisor on Public Relations and Special Duties to the Vice-Chancellor of the institution, Professor Charles Esimone. Although in the statement, Ojukwu did not mention the names of the indicted officials, he said there is an ongoing investigation concerning alleged sexual harassment by some lecturers, while insisting that there was no protest at the institution. In a separate development, the Nigerian Navy has set ablaze and arrested vessel MV Cecilia with about 350,000 liters of stolen automated gas oil, also known as diesel, in Woji, Obiakpo local government area of Rivers State. The Commander Operation Delta Safe, Rear Admiral Olusegun Ferreira, represented by the Maritime Component Commander of the Joint Task Force JTF for Operation Delta Safe South-South, Navy Commodore Adedokun Shianbade, conducted newsmen around the arrested vessel. Ferreira said the vessel, which has not been in use for 2 years, serves as a storage tank for illegally refined products. He said that as part of efforts to fulfill the mandate of Operation Delta Safe, the Commander JTF South-South of OPDS directed the Nigerian Navy ship NNS Pathfinder, based on credible intelligence, to conduct a covert operation in the area, which led to the arrest. In another development, the Nigerian armed forces and other relatives, as well as friends of the fallen heroes, have held a mass burial at the National Military Cemetery in Abuja for some of the military personnel who died in combat in Niger State. Present at the funeral ceremony were the Chief of Defense Staff, Major General Christopher Musa, Minister of State for Defense Bello Matawale, and other service chiefs. Reports say some of the deceased officers had already been buried by their families. Recall that the Defense Headquarters had said no fewer than 36 officers were killed in battle, including an air mission on August 14. In a related development, the Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, has ordered all military commanders and soldiers to exact revenge for the deaths of their colleagues. Speaking during the burial of soldiers killed by bandits in Niger State today, the CDS vowed that those responsible for the act will not go unpunished. He assured that the military will go after bandits, terrorists, and other criminal groups throughout the country. Back here, Akwa Ibom State Environmental Protection and Waste Management Agency ANSEPWA has announced that the monthly statewide environmental sanitation exercise will hold tomorrow, Saturday, August 26, with full restriction of movement. In a release signed by the chairman of the agency, Dr. Prince Ikem, the exercise will hold from 7 a.m. through 10 a.m. tomorrow. He therefore urged residents of the state to comply with the directive, while community leaders are encouraged to mobilize members of their communities to participate in the exercise. Still to come in the news. Fed prepared to raise rates further to combat inflation. Stay with us.
Business exists only to meet the needs of the people, but there's an extra advantage if your product and services are pitched on a platform that gives you the added advantage over your competitors. For your desired return on investment and so much more, advertise on Spectrum Television, on StarTime's DTH Channel 421 and on free-to-air with a frequency of 12733. Spectrum Television, broadening your horizon.
Many thanks for staying tuned. We move on now to Africa, where the Community of West African States, ECOWAS, Omar Touray, has said that the regional organization has not declared war on the people of Niger Republic, nor is there any plan to invade the country. Touray, who made the assertion today while addressing journalists, was unequivocal that the use of military force is not being used in the coup-hit West African nation. The ECOWAS president, however, noted that scales of sanctions had been activated, including legitimate force. According to him, the organization is hopeful that all diplomatic efforts will yield positive action on the part of the junta as preparations continue to make the force ready for deployment in case it becomes compelling to use the force. Still in Africa, Dilma Rousseff, the bank's president, says the new development bank, NDB, will promote the inclusion of new members in finance in local currencies of member countries. Rousseff said this recently in a written interview, noting that the bank was well capitalized with low leverage. The bank is in a strong position to expand its role as a tool for carrying out sustainable development projects. Rousseff told correspondents that the inclusion of new members supported NDB's vocation of functioning as a true platform for cooperation among the countries of the Global South. He added that multiple and diverse voices would be heard. Meanwhile, the head of the restive Amhara region in northwestern Ethiopia has resigned amid ongoing violence that prompted a 6-month state of emergency to be declared. Yokal Kefale led Ethiopia's second most populous region for nearly 2 years. His tenure has been marked by violence as a brutal civil war that broke out in neighboring Tigray later expanded to Amhara, resulting in civilian deaths, accusations of sexual abuse, and a humanitarian crisis. According to reports, since April, the region has seen sporadic clashes, which earlier this month morphed into widespread unrest. Local militias opposing the federal government's move to disband a regional paramilitary unit entered several cities and briefly controlled an airport. Meanwhile, an emergency summit of the region's council in the capital, Bahir Dar, accepted the outgoing regional president's resignation and appointed Arega Kabede to replace him. In the meantime, Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni has banned the importation of second-hand clothes and electricity meters and cables. The directive is aimed at creating jobs and developing Uganda's manufacturing sector, including the textile industry. President Museveni issued the directive while launching 10 factories that will manufacture electricity meters and cables in the eastern Uganda town of Mbale. The factories, run by Chinese investors, are part of the Sino-Uganda Industrial Park, a project between the Ugandan government and Chinese investors. Uganda's neighbor, Rwanda, successfully banned the importation of second-hand clothes in 2018. Meanwhile, other East African countries have also attempted to phase out second-hand clothing imports in the past. Still in Africa, the World Food Programme WFP and the United Nations Children's Fund UNICEF have said that they have no plans to cut back operations in the coup-hit West African nation, while warning that time is running out. According to both agencies, sanctions by the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, are not just threatening Niger's food and medical supplies, but also taking a toll on the movement of people and goods from neighboring countries. Elsewhere, election observers from southern African countries have criticized the conduct of the poll in Zimbabwe, where votes are being counted. The regional body called SADC said the voting was peaceful, but that some aspects fell short of local laws and its own guidelines. Reports say late on Wednesday that more than 40 poll monitors were arrested as they were trying to compile their own vote count to compare with the official tally. Meanwhile, the arrests have been condemned by rights groups. President Emmerson Mnangagwa is seeking re-election amid high unemployment and soaring inflation. His main challenger is Nelson Chamisa of the Opposition Citizens Coalition for Change. Meanwhile, Sierra Leone's government has said that it is ready to establish an embassy of Sierra Leone in Jerusalem. This follows other countries like the US, Guatemala, Honduras, and Kosovo, who have already opened embassies there. Israel considers Jerusalem to be its capital, including East Jerusalem, which it annexed in 1980. But the move is not recognized by most of the international community. Meanwhile, most countries have kept their embassies to Israel in Tel Aviv, as they think the status of Jerusalem should be decided in negotiations with the Palestinians, who claim it as the capital of a future Palestinian state. Still in Africa, Somalia's army has captured a major stronghold from the Islamist militant group Al-Shabaab. The town of El Bur in central Somalia had been held by Al-Shabaab since 2017. Although the army have taken over, there were no reports of clashes, and local correspondents say the jihadist fighters appear to have made a tactical withdrawal. The development comes days after President Hassan Sheikh Mohammed announced the launch of a second offensive, which he said would eliminate the group within months. Since last year, government forces working with clan militias have seized swathes of territory from Al-Shabaab. Reports say the group has been weakened but continues to carry out frequent attacks, including in the capital, Mogadishu. In the meantime, the drought-hit Panama Canal will maintain restrictions on the passage of ships for 1 year, a measure that has already led to a marine traffic jam as boats line up to enter the crucial waterway linking two oceans. According to reports, the canal is facing a shortage of rainwater to transfer ships through a series of locks that function like water elevators, an engineering marvel that moves 6% of the world's maritime commerce between the Atlantic and the Pacific Oceans. Elsewhere, the United States Treasury has announced the sanctioning of 6 Rwandans and Congolese alleged to have contributed to the ongoing conflict in the Eastern Democratic Republic of the Congo, DR Congo. 6 include a commander in DR Congo's military, a brigadier in Rwanda's armed forces, and members of M23 group and the Democratic Forces for the Liberation of Rwanda. According to reports, the sanctions will result in the freezing of the individuals' assets in the U.S. The sanctions also prohibit the individuals from engaging in business with Americans or receiving or benefiting from support in form of funds, goods, or services. On the foreign scene now, former U.S. President Donald Trump was arrested at Georgia jail on racketeering and conspiracy charges and released on a $200,000 bond after having a historic mugshot taken. Trump, who is accused of colluding with 18 other defendants to overturn the 2020 election result in the southern state, spent less than 30 minutes inside Atlanta's Fulton County Jail before leaving in a motorcade for the airport. Like the other defendants in the case who have surrendered so far, the 77-year-old Trump had his mugshot taken during the booking process, a first for any serving or former U.S. president. In the photograph released by the sheriff's office, he scowled at the camera while dressed in a dark blue suit, white shirt and red tie.
Challenge an election. You should be able to challenge an election. I thought the election was a rigged election, a stolen election, and I should have every right to do that. As you know, you have many people that you've been watching over the years do the same thing, whether it's Hillary Clinton or Stacey Abrams or many others. When you have that great freedom to challenge, you have to be able to, otherwise you're going to have very dishonest elections. What has taken place here is a travesty of justice. We did nothing wrong. I did nothing wrong. And everybody knows it. I've never had such support.
Still on the foreign scene, former French President Nicolas Sarkozy will be tried in 2025 over allegations he took money from late Libyan dictator Muammar Gaddafi to fund one of his election campaigns. The trial is set to hear explosive evidence that the right-winger, along with 12 other co-defendants, conspired to take cash from the Libyan leader to illegally fund his victorious 2007 bid for the presidency. Sarkozy, who has faced a litany of legal problems since his one term in office, denies the Libyan allegations, the most serious he faces. Meanwhile, the 68-year-old has already been convicted twice for corruption and influence peddling in separate cases involving attempts to influence a judge and campaign financing. Sarkozy has appealed against both judgments. Meanwhile, the French government has announced that 200 million euros would be set aside to fund the destruction of surplus wine production in a bid to support struggling producers and shore up prices. Several major wine-producing regions in France, particularly the famed Bordeaux area, are struggling because of a cocktail of problems from changes in consumption habits, the cost of living crisis, and the after effects of COVID-19. Meanwhile, the fall in demand for wine has led to overproduction, a sharp fall in prices, and major financial difficulties for up to 1 in 3 winemakers in the Bordeaux region. Elsewhere, the Kremlin has dismissed rumors that it ordered the assassination of Wagner chief Yevgeny Prigozhin, who reportedly died in an aviation incident after leading an uprising against Russia's military leadership. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov told newsmen during a briefing that there is a lot of speculation around the plane crash and the tragic death of the passengers, including Prigozhin. Peskov noted that the speculation is being presented from a certain angle in the West, adding that the speculations are absolute lies.